tying in tourism with farming?
Yeah, a lot of people don't see the fit, but if you look back to the history of tourism in New Zealand, our tourism entrepreneurs are our farmers. New Zealand is, this 100% pure New Zealand campaign that we have. So we are blue skies, mountains, rivers, pastures, all of those things that are absolutely tied into the farming community, those rural communities. It's tourism, and so tourism is one of those ubiquitous industries which is part of farming. It's part of urban towns as well, but it is a natural fit because those landscapes that farmers farm and foster are those same landscapes that tourists just love. The sheep, the beef, wide open spaces, trees, all those sorts of open things are absolutely quintessential New Zealand, and it's tied up to the rural sector, and the rural sector does that very, very well.
So it's more than just a B&B on the side of the road.
Absolutely, and it's more than just a pit stop on the way to a place, a cafe, and those sorts of things. But it's the way that tourism links into the rural community is trying to get real value and add value to those communities. So it's not just attractions and it's not just things to do, but it's the festivals that are generated from the need to have visitors come. We're doing a project in Geraldine at the moment, and Geraldine's an interesting town because it's one of those places which is to somewhere else. It's on the main road down to Twizel and Queenstown, but it's also a place to stop, and so it's just close enough to the major population base of Christchurch where they are starting to generate events not just for local people but to get outsiders coming in. So it adds a whole lot of different things to communities. It's food tourism, gastronomy. Barker's in Geraldine is about farm to plate. So it's all those value add. It's so much more than just B&B. It's so much more than just the service industry, which I think is an interesting kind of point. What is tourism's value to a township? Its value is that it can create diversity of economy. It can create something for people to come and see. It adds value to lifestyles and those kinds of things. So it's a really good complementary industry to primary production.
But is it something that a sheep farmer can make a shilling out of?
Well, this is one of the challenges, isn't it? It's and again, the value of tourism is, I think, traditionally seen as being a low value industry, and certainly this is some of our research that we're looking at the moment is how can we get the best type of tourism for us? So we want tourism to be more than just, as I said before, a cafe stop. We're on possibly a minimum wage, but in terms of a farming situation, how can a sheep farmer add value to his or her production through tourism? Well, it's about using the resource better. So for example, in central Otago, a lot of the sheep farms in high country stations are using tourism as a means to sort of supplement income. So, there are wool shed weddings, for example. There are mountain bike events and multi-sport events on farms. So it's one of those things where it can kind of add a little bit of income to an existing income stream. So I think that's where the value is for those farmers. But and it's also about creating jobs for the wider community. I mean, Hamner Springs is a very good example, or the Huronui district, of a whole lot of additional jobs being created for the farming community, not necessarily on the farm, but certainly through hotels and through attractions, on-farm attractions, and also even the thermal pools. So all of those things that help to add to a community located in a rural place. Maybe not necessarily the farm itself, but there are many different ways that tourism can add value to those sorts of places.
I guess Methven's got it right.
Methven's done a very good job of it. And again, see, these rural places, these places that I'm interested in, are places bang smack in the middle of scenic beauty. Now, Methven is close to Christchurch, close to the southern airport hub, so all these international visitors come in. Ski field, 1.5, 2 hours out of Christchurch, so Methven is perfectly placed. So it's got the winter season where they can just absolutely, it's ski town central for the Canterbury region, and that supplements all the existing farming around there. So it's tourism is not taking resource away from those farming endeavours. It's kind of adding something else which can can contribute to a much broader diversified economy.
And of course, there's the tie-up with farmers producing produce for the local hotels and motels and restaurants.
Oh, look, absolutely. And so again, I go back to, the Methven example that you used, or even Geraldine and the Huranui. So you have these tourism hubs, which need to be supplied. Now, the best way to get value from tourism is to have as much of the things that tourists need supplied by local producers. So locally raised beef and sheep for restaurants, locally produced produce, in terms of vegetables and fruits and those sorts of things, to absolutely keep the supply chain tight, because as a discipline, tourism has a supply chain just like the agriculture sector has a supply chain. So all of those things that tourists need must be derived from somewhere. So if a place like Geraldine can produce as much food to look after the tourists as possible, and also any of the other sorts of services and amenities that they require, then that helps to kind of create this economic benefit. And also in the case of Geraldine, it is as bark as jam. They are becoming known as a gastronomic location. So this gastronomy tourism helps to create a different type of demand. Tourists go from Christchurch to Geraldine just for the jam and the chocolatiers and the freshly derived produce. It really is, and it's adding value. So it cuts out the supply chain to get to supermarkets. In fact, farmers can just supply direct to restaurants, and that's the value of being in those rural locations.
Farmers markets, they become something that everybody wants to buy fresh and local.
Oh, look, this is really I guess the fashionable phrase at the moment. Farmers markets, buy locally made, locally produced, and there is this reassurance that the consumers have, and certainly tourists have this as well. We go to places because we want to experience a place, not just to see the scenery, but to actually have some sort of experience of a place. And so, this idea of buying a locally produced goods gives tourists, from the tourist point of view, a much closer connection with the place. And it also helps to create the sense of identity and sense of destination branding. And Geraldine have just recently developed a tourism strategy. Now, one of the strategies within that is to have a much stronger destination brand, which revolves around being a food tourism hub, Barkers, and also then linking that into some sort of heritage base as well. So it helps to create a really strong sense of place and real benefits that extend not just to being behind a cafe counter and serving, but producer, employer, and help to create some sort of stronger destination brand, and that's really important.
And I suppose any small country town can do it.
Well, look, I think so. There is different destinations, different areas have different levels of suitability for I guess for tourism. As long as there are some key kind of characteristics that are met, there is an attraction. So there is usually some scenery, some activity that is based around scenery. There is a service town, so there is some sort of town there as well. So as long as a destination has, it has access, has high scenic amenity, and has things that people are interested in doing, and it's supported by a rural community, then absolutely any destination community can do it. But the level of success of that might vary, and again, that is, tourism is often seen as a supplementary business, and it might not be the case that all destinations strike it rich with just being that type of tourism. But again, if there are rural communities out there that have access to fresh produce and great growing conditions, you think of Waimate. So Havoc Pork has done very, very well, and Waimate has done very well out of Havoc Pork. It is seen as being the producer of free range meat produce, and so it's got a bit of a name for itself like that. So all of these sorts of places, if you have some fresh produce, some access to primary resources, it goes a long way to help to secure some sort of visitation.